Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton has some heavy hitters backing his Senate bid, including President Trump. But his Democratic challenger, James Tallarico, just scored a surprising endorsement of his own. This week, prominent Houston lawyer Dan Cogdell announced his endorsement for Tallarico. Cogdell represented Paxton during his 2023 impeachment trial, in which he was accused of corruption and abuse of office by Republicans in the Texas House. Paxton was later acquitted by the Texas Senate. Cogdell made his endorsement this week during an interview with Tallarico on his podcast. Here's what he said.
I think Ken has lost sight of his core mission, which is to represent the people of Texas. And unlike Ken, I believe to my core, James, that you believe in unity over division. We need unity. We don't need any more division. And that's why I'm supporting you.
Dan Cogdell joins us now. So, Dan, you spent a lot of hours with Ken Paxton as one of his lead counsel, a lot of billable hours, too. But in that clip, you said that you thought Paxton lost sight of his mission to represent Texans. What do you mean by that? And what's the risk to Ken Paxton if this race does become a referendum on character?
Well, to be clear, I didn't spend hours with Paxton. I spent years with him. I was on the impeachment team, and I was the lead lawyer in his criminal case. But look, Texas has bigger problems than I think Ken is focusing on. We are number one in school shootings. We are number one in uninsured motorists. We are 44th in education. We are 48th in healthcare. And from what I've seen really even up to today, Ken seems to be focusing on Trump, MAGA, Trump, MAGA, Trump. He needs to be focusing on the people of the state of Texas.
I wanted to get your thoughts on, and Paxton, excuse me, Paxton hasn't personally responded to your endorsement of James Tallarico, but I wanted to get your thoughts on State Representative Mitch Little, who came out and he served as well as one of the lead defense attorneys. He says, I love Dan, obviously talking about you, but he is a Democrat and he doesn't vote very much. This impeachment defense lawyer is 100% behind Ken Paxton. I've personally served alongside Representative Tallarico, and when he is working, he's doing really radical leftist things. Your response to Little saying you're a Democrat?
First off, first off, I like Mitch. He's good people. I respect him. He's a smart man. I have no bridle with Mitch at all. That having been said, I don't really think a Democrat is a scarlet letter. As I've repeatedly said, I have voted for Democrats. I have voted for Republicans. I have raised far more money for Republicans, both through donation and through fundraisers, than I ever raised for Democrats. So if making Mitch and Busby and whomever feel better by calling me a Democrat, have right at it, ladies. I don't care. I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to vote my conscience, and that's what I'm doing.
Did you ever reach out, just out of curiosity, to Paxton, in the months leading up to this moment when you had this conversation with James Tallarico? Did you reach out to him to let him know what you thought about how he's managed this race and his leadership, and to give him a heads up that you were taking this step?
No, I didn't. I mean, again, the Constitution requires that I zealously advocate and represent him. I did that and more, but it doesn't require that I vote for him or endorse him, nor does it require that I give him a heads up. And to be clear, I do not dislike Ken as a person. I dislike what I believe to be his focus.
Dan, do you think that there are enough right-leaning Texans who usually vote Republican and are more moderate who are willing to, like you, shed party labels and vote for a Democrat in Senate in this polarizing era? Because it's those crossovers that are really going to matter, that usually vote Republican, but that just don't like the chaos of Ken Paxton.
Well, look, that is the question. And I don't think Tallarico can win unless he wins the border back. I don't think he can win unless he gets the young vote out. And I think he's got to sway some of the more right-wing people, if you will, than the moderates. But I don't think it's going to be that hard. We have screwworm back in Texas for the first time in 20 years. There was a federal facility in Uvalde whose job it was to monitor the possibility of screwworm. Guess what? It's back. And that was a Doge cut, which Paxton sheared up. The tariffs have hurt our farmers. The tariffs have hurt cattle business. There's a lot of Texans that used to be right on for 45 that are not so much for 47. They're seeing a different president, and I think it's going to take its toll. Look, I'm not the amazing Kreskin if I could tell you for certain who who was going to win that race, I'd be in Vegas. I wouldn't be in my home. But I think Tallarico is a much more formidable opponent than the Paxton camp believes him to be.
Some of the evidence for that they seem to be a little bit shaken by him is that some of their attacks against him, they're kind of low blows. I mean, suggesting that Tallarico isn't manly enough, creating these memes and AI videos and images of him. I want you to take a listen to how Tallarico has responded to some of these attacks. He spoke with our colleague, Jen Psaki.
Here's what real men don't do. They don't lie and cheat their way through life. They don't sell their soul to the highest bidder. They don't steal from other people in order to enrich themselves. Real men serve others. Weak men serve themselves. And so I welcome this debate about what it means to be a man. And I don't think Ken Paxton or Ted Cruz are in a position to tell anybody what a real man is.
How do you think this debate over what a real man is going to play out with Texas voters?
Well, I'm glad you asked that because, again, I'm not here to attack Ken's character. I'm here to endorse Tallarico. But I've seen these ads where they liken James Tallarico with the AI and to being Mary Poppins and singing to transgender kids. I've seen the photo op in the White House, for God's sakes, with Paxton and Lieutenant Dan, our Lieutenant Governor, and the President of the United States likening Tallarico to Alfred E. Newman and the Mad Magazine character. I mean, that's why I'm as vocal as I am. That sort of stuff is childish. It has no place in an election. It speaks volumes to me how worried they are. If that's the best they got, that he's a vegan, or as Trump calls him, a vegan, that's your selling point. Okay, knock yourself out.
Dan, I got to ask you really quickly, if I can, about another issue that you're dealing with, and that is the fight against Epic City, this debate that's taking, you've had some experience, I guess it's a lawsuit that's been filed by Paxton and the Governor Greg Abbott against the East Plano Islamic Center that was known as Epic City. It has about 1,000 residential units, a mosque, a K-12 faith-based school, retail shops. This is out of Dallas. You represent this center, and you've said that Abbott has engaged in racial profiling in targeting Epic City. Tell us a little bit about what is going on there and an update on that situation, if you don't mind.
Yeah, Abbott is doing what Abbott has always done. He has identified a fake monster. First, it was the transgenders, and then it was the furries, and now it's the Muslims. He's identified this fake monster, and then he solves the problem by going after them. There are lawsuits filed. In fact, there was one filed by Paxton. There's not a single finding by any court that we haven't followed the law to the letter. And I get it. Muslims aren't particularly a popular name to throw around in East Texas where the Bible Belt buckles. I understand that. But those people have a right to exercise their freedom of religion, just like a Baptist, just like a Catholic, just like anyone else. So that's not the reason I'm endorsing Tallarico. The reason that I'm endorsing Tallarico is because I believe him to be a far superior candidate.
Dan Cogdell, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me, guys. I appreciate it. Have a good weekend.